Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Sarah Fensky. Kip and J.J. Loui are a married couple who make music. They released their second album together earlier this year. It's an homage to the state they call home. And yes, it's called Show Me State. Its songs take us from Lesterville, Missouri, in the state's southeast corner, all the way to the Eads Bridge.
A barge is making its way down the river. Well, that's the scene from on high. Heading westbound, approaching St. Louis. The stars are gleaming in the waters below. Kind of blue, playing quiet and peaceful. I'm driving alone, but the city welcomes me home. These are my streets, this is my town, especially after sundown. Soon to the North Forest Park.
And that is Eads Bridge After Dark from Kip and J.J. Louie's new album, Show Me State. They call it a love letter to St. Louis. And joining us today to talk about this song and that album are J.J. and Kip Loui. So J.J. Loui, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. What a pleasure. Thanks for having us.
And Kip Loui, welcome.
Howdy, howdy. Hello, hello.
So, Kip, I understand you wrote Eads Bridge After Dark, and I can almost picture you driving the streets alone. Was this inspired by a particular evening out there on the streets?
It was. I was driving home from a gig one night on the east side, and I was driving over the bridge, and the song sort of evokes those feelings that St. Louis is a complicated place. I've lived here most of my life, but I've always, in the back of my mind, kind of wanted to do something that was almost a Valentine to St. Louis, because there's so much that's good here in addition to the challenges we face. And that song is kind of my homage to St. Louis.
And JJ, what about you? Do you share that same love for St. Louis where you're ready to give it a Valentine?
I do, because I'm actually a transplant from the Quad City area. And interestingly enough, Kip's entire family was born where I'm from. He was the only Loui born here in St. Louis, so the fact that we met here and I stayed here and started my family has a big part of my heart. So Yeah, I agree with that sentiment.
So you guys are Iowans. You have deep Iowa lineages, even if you are now St. Louisans.
That's right.
I have to ask,
Indeed,
though,
we do.
I feel like there's a lot of St. Louisans who have a deep love for St. Louis, but they have much more complicated feelings about Missouri. Kip, is that true in your case?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a complex place, Missouri, right? Viewed from any vantage point, there's a lot going on here. The history of St. Louis alone is very storied and complicated. Yeah,
things to be proud of, things not to be proud of.
I think that's a fair assessment.
So I was talking to Kip about what inspired this particular song, but JJ, I'm interested in the bigger picture. What inspired the idea of sort of an American rock opera set all across the state of Missouri?
Well, it really is. The character stories of it, for Missouri, they're current, but they're very real. And it's a slowed down pace that makes you take a little drop of that sea of Missouri and see that we're really part of the whole big picture, but just taking the microscope and bringing it down into that one tiny piece. But then you're right, it does kind of cover a broader spectrum, the whole state of Missouri, but it's a very complex state. So we take that one little drop and drop it in the sea of Missouri, because there's a lot.
And tell us, you mentioned this idea of character stories. What do you mean by that?
Well, we've spent a lot of time camping in Mark Twain National Forest, getting outdoors. And it's the people that we meet. It's the people that approach us that we meet, listening to them, telling their stories and just how we're all really connected in that sense. So it really is just kind of a one-on-one, and then, the songwriter's pen that allows you to kind of go with that and expand on that story.
So, Kip, does each one of these songs have a real-life counterpart out there somewhere, even if the song ends up changing form many times before it becomes a piece of art?
Right. So a couple of the songs are based on my own personal experiences, but I would say a good 9 or 10 of them are just sort of characters that I created, and they're based on people I've met or have known or who are actually close to me, and so I think of the record as almost a collection of short stories, which each song representing its own chapter.
So these are maybe linked stories. It's not like you're suddenly in Iowa for one of them. The Missouri part draws it all together.
Missouri is the backdrop. Yeah, and the characters are expressing personal stories, but they're also kind of universal, is how I wrote them. And, the whole thing came about because I just finished writing a song on the record called Defiance, which is set in the town of Defiance, Missouri, which is not too far from here. Mm-hmm. And it's a place that has captured my imagination since I was young. Even as a teenager, I'm like, what a cool name, Defiance. I want to live in Defiance, right?
So it wasn't the town of Defiance so much that captured you as a teen. It was the idea of Defiance, the name of Defiance?
Precisely. Exactly right. Yep. So, and then, the current fellow who occupies the White House kind of got me thinking about, I was feeling sort of political, but I didn't want to just write political songs like that were very overt and kind of on the nose, and that I didn't want to be that obvious. So I decided to sort of do some social commentary through these characters that I created, and one of them lives in Defiance, Missouri, and he's kind of talking about his life and his family and the town. Now, I will say, the Defiance, Missouri on my record is not necessarily the real Defiance, Missouri. I took some artistic liberty.
Mm-hmm. Defiance remains for you more an idea than the literal place.
Yes, ma'am.
So, as you mentioned, this is a political album. You have some thoughts about our president and about the political situation. And I do want to play a song here now for our listeners that hits that home. This song is called Mid-City Lumber.
I work the floor, Mid-City Lumber.
And that is Mid-City Lumber from the album Show Me State by JJ and Kip Loui. Kip, you wrote this one as well. What is the inspiration behind the character story here?
Well, so she's an Iraq War widow trying to raise her daughter by herself in the town she grew up in, which is Jefferson City, Missouri. And it's just about the challenges she faces. She's barely making it, even though she's working full time at her job at Mid-City Lumber. Trying to raise a kid on your own, and then she feels like the politicians across town, they feign anger and outrage, but it sure feels like they don't really care about her or what she might be experiencing or what millions like her might be experiencing.
It's interesting. It's a really catchy song, and it kind of brought to mind for me Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA, that this is played often as this rah-rah, go America kind of anthem, even though there's something much different going on within that track. Do you think that the politics in here are going to be subtle enough that it might appeal to people who don't even realize what they're rocking out to?
I sure hope so. I'm a humanist at heart, and I have politics, and I don't shy away from them. But as a singer and a songwriter and an entertainer, I don't really want to wear that on my sleeve or stick my finger in other people's eyes. I hope to just, if there's social policy I find unpleasant, or isn't really working for us as a people, I want to show that rather than tell that. So I'm showing it through this character and her plight and her situation, which I think, again, a lot of people can sympathize with right now.
JJ, you also wrote a couple of the songs on this album. What are some of the Missouri places you found yourself being inspired by or name-checking in these songs?
Absolutely. So when I first moved to St. Louis, there was a wonderful jazz spot that Kip and I visited. And I've always wanted, I'm a folky and blues person by nature, but I always wanted to write a jazz song. And I was truly inspired being in St. Louis. And I wish I could remember the name of the place. I'm absolutely certain it's
Spruil's,
not even...
I think the name of it was Spruil's.
And it was on the north side.
Okay.
Spruil's. But it was such a great place. And I wanted to mix a little bit of that into a song that I could play. I just wanted to take a stab at a jazzy number, and that's what God Blesses. And it just turned out so well with John Horton and Carl on piano. They really just made that song come to life. So a little inspiration, from St. Louis on that aspect.
So it seems like you guys just have this great collaboration. You're working off each other's ideas, and it comes together as this unified whole. I have to ask, Kip, how did you first meet?
Well, so I was actually taking my nephew, who had just turned 21. I was taking him out to an open mic because he was sort of a budding guitarist and a singer, and he wanted, some public places to play. So I took him to this establishment that I knew, Frederick's Music Lounge. It's closed now, run by the lovely and talented Fred Friction. But so I took my nephew there, and at the open mic was this really sort of intriguing, beautiful woman with a cool voice. And I was a single man at the time, so I kind of introduced myself to her after she was done performing, and I said, I'd really love to play some music with you sometime, and it was sincere,
And JJ, at that point in your open mic career, were you tired of hearing that pickup line?
Maybe just a little, but in all truth, we actually did have more of a professional relationship to start with. We literally started playing music together and practicing and getting a few songs together. Professionally before we romantically evolved.
And were you musically? You were kind of on the same page from the get-go?
Oh, no, I loved that. Oh, you take this one, babe.
Well, I just, Jay has her own kind of style and aesthetics as a songwriter, and so do I. But there's on our Venn diagram, there's a place where the ovals sort of overlap, and we create music in that place, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. No, that totally does. So you were able to find that overlap and get in that groove fairly easily from the get-go. Is that fair to say, JJ?
It is. I really want to say that I learned quite a bit from Kip, and the music industry from where I was from was not quite as thriving when I moved down here. So I learned quite a bit in regards to the songwriting process, because I certainly had my own style. But working with Kip, I want to say that I really learned a little bit more of bluegrass, a little bit more country, a little bit more of your standard 3.5-minute song. So it kind of kept me in check as well. But I did learn quite a bit when we first met. So yeah, we gelled, but it was a learning process for both of us, for sure.
Now, I understand in addition to now having these two albums together, you also have a 7-year-old. Kip, has that collaboration been just as smooth and easy as these two albums?
Our son, Max, who we love and adore. Max is a smart little guy, and he's already pushing boundaries. And
a 7-year-old should. There'd be something wrong if he wasn't yet.
Totally, totally. So we are parents raising our son, and we both have fairly serious day jobs. In addition, I'm a teacher at Lindbergh High School with the special school district, and Jay manages a dental office. So music is kind of something we pursue in stolen moments of our lives, but it's front and center for us, and it's a real passion. And if you go to our Bandcamp website, you'll find the record there. That's as well as many other albums that I've released over the years, because I'm sort of a veteran of St. Louis music scene. I've been doing this a while, and I've released albums under different band names and stuff. This is JJ's first record, really. She had some songs that I just loved, and I'm like, wow, we're long overdue for recording some of your songs, babe.
So so this is your songwriting debut, even though you previously performed on the other album, JJ.
Yes. So definitely a songwriting debut. And just to shoot back about Max a little bit, he's definitely involved in the process. He has a few songs written about him on this current album. And the last album, it's pretty obvious, it's called Little Max, which is one of my favorites. But he plays drums as well. So we're kind of hoping that he'll kind of fall into being able to play with us in a professional capacity sometime soon.
So he's both a collaboration and inspiration, and maybe he'll be part of the band. That's so exciting. And I want to thank you both for joining us today. JJ Loui, thank you so much.
Great, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
And Kip Loui, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio. That's 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.